Bitstarter launch number 5. I bring you from London, Mr. Rob Warner, our latest founder, in Portugal, Gustavo Arosso, and somewhere incognito, presumably in the Midlands in Norwich, we have Siam Kid. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So we're starting about 10 minutes late because, as always, we have some AV issues to deal with. This is our 5th launch. We will go through our crowdfund again and show people the web app, how to connect the wallet, and the opportunity that we have with our latest team. This is also our first show with Gus, since he stepped up to be founding partner. And as you'll see later, Gus's experience and background has a direct relevance on Rob's domain experience and Rob's startup as well. So while we wait for people to join us, I'm going to share the lovely Bitstarter web app, where we will get our first glimpse of the new team. Causal outcome prediction for paid ad search, ad tau. Ad spend is centralized, opaque, and ripe for disruption. And annual spend on Google Ads has hit almost $300 billion. Ad tau is BitTensor's answer to a monopolized, centralized, and big tech-dominated company. This is what the protocol does best, is realign incentives in markets and spaces where they've become dangerously misaligned. We have 3 tracks here. 10% discount for 1 month lockup, 20 for 2 months, 30% for 3 months. The full crowdfund terms can be found here. We're looking to raise 400 tau across all 3 of the tracks. The pledging has opened, and we are somehow almost 10% of the way there. We're over 10% of the way there now. So before we welcome in our other guests, I just want to give a chance to Siam here, because Siam's relationship with Rob goes back a long way. So Siam, why don't you introduce us to your background with Rob?
Yeah, sure. So about 13 years ago, I joined a private entrepreneurs group, and it was full of really lovely and much smarter people than myself. And Rob was one of them. And John, who's not here at the moment, it was also there. So John has been my long-term business mentor. He is like on another level. He, the greatest respect for him, and like the best duo I've seen is John with Rob. Now Rob, I don't know any person better at what he does than him, and like he's very humble, but he used to run like a white label PPC company. So loads of marketing agencies would get the contracts, and then they just farm all the work out to Rob's company. And I knew some of these, and they were winning all these massive Google awards. And there's one company that won the best Google. It was actually his company. And so yeah, I cowpill everyone that comes within 10 meters of me. And finally, I'm super happy that Rob is now becoming a subnet owner. And,
Fantastic.
And set up, run, grow, and sell, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 businesses over the last 13 years. So he does the whole thing. So that's enough for me. Let's hear from Rob.
Absolutely. Rob?
Yeah, so just into my background, as Siam says, Siam and I have known each other for 13 years or thereabouts now. Your memory is probably better than mine. And my other co-founder, John Davey, who isn't on this stream today, since the early hours of the morning where he lives right now. And there's probably missiles flying over his head. So he's fast asleep doing something useful. So we've been in this entrepreneurs group for some time. I just started a fledgling digital marketing agency, 100% Google Ads focused. Since day one, we were 100% Google Ads white label team. And we grew that to a decent size, to the point where Google invited us into their kind of top tier. They have a private club, I'd call it. It's like a private members club where the other 40,000 agency partners that Google have in their ecosystem. They don't get in. They're kind of like somebody gives you the call and says, would you like to come in? And we were in that club. We were the only white label agency of that type in that club in the world, which is pretty cool because they throw money and resource and developers and all sorts of things at you. And that back in those days, Google were relatively agency friendly. And so we built that agency to hundreds and hundreds of clients. Ultimately, John and I sold it in 2021 because we wanted to build tech for agencies because we saw problems in the agency space. And I've often described myself as a 5-year-old boy trapped in the body of a 50-year-old man. I kind of don't know why. If something doesn't work, I want to know why. Why doesn't that work? Why is that way? Why can't we fix it? And my usual answer is, if I can't find a satisfactory answer, screw it, let's build it. And so we build things and we solve problems that should have been solved by somebody else a long time ago, but for whatever reason weren't. So we built our first Google Ads SaaS starting in 2021, and we grew that to 7 figures. We grew it to $1 million revenue, and we sold it because it was part of the solution we wanted. It wasn't everything we wanted. And so that, I guess, brings us to where we are today, and that we see a huge opportunity that we're really well positioned to take. I thought, right, when Siam explained to me what Bitstarter was, it's like, hang on a minute, these two things fit together really, really well. We need to get on with this. So that's why we're here today, guys.
Wonderful. If you don't like something, build it better. I think Bitstarter is going to love you.
Oh, just fix the damn thing, build it.
Right?
You've got to.
And when we first met, what struck me was that energy, that mindset of a true engineer's mindset of, let's find out why it doesn't work. Let's break it down into its constituent components and rebuild it again. What amazed me, though, was how recently you've been introduced to Bitstarter. Really, is it right since December?
December. So I think the short version of how I found about Bitstarter was that same mastermind group that Siam mentioned a few minutes ago. He and I still go. We go once a month. Well, theoretically once a month. More like it's our Christmas meeting. And it was a big lunch in a fancy restaurant, not a million miles away from here. And Siam and I walked in about 5 minutes apart and sat down opposite the table. And Siam said, "Hey, Rob, what are you doing now?" Well, this is what we're doing. We've sold that. We built this. That sounds cool. What are you doing, Siam? Well, I'm doing this. Oh, these two need to meet. And so over a bottle of wine over lunch, or maybe two, we came up with the fledgling plan. Siam explained to me what Bitstarter was, and I spent my last 3 months with my head buried deep in this universe, ready to be here today because it's what a cool place to be.
You have, because the other thing that surprised me was how much work you've put into creating one of the most thoughtful scoring rubrics, one of the most thoughtful anti-gaming harnesses, a very, very comprehensive draft code corpus. I think 7,000 lines. Like a pitch deck and a white paper and maybe a GitHub is usually sufficient. So what took me aback was, wow, given that it's only been 3 months, you've really put a lot of energy into this. So what is it about Bitstarter that struck you as like, yes, this is the platform that I want to develop this system on? So
frankly, it's access to brains. It's access to smart people that otherwise I wouldn't be able to find, connect with, or even if you ever have any difficult problems to solve, and if you've got difficult mathematical product problems, things that you want to solve where nobody's really built an answer for it. And don't get me wrong, I build lots of things, but when we start reaching advanced maths and probability and statistics, I tap out at that point. At that stage, we know what we want to achieve, but the how we don't know. And if you go through a traditional route and you start bringing on universities and you start working with professors, you'll take forever. They don't think at entrepreneur speed. They don't act at business speed. They act at academia speed. And the glaciers will have melted before those guys have got to work and figured anything out. So if we want to bring things to the market commercially quickly, we need hive mind on this. We need multiple people bringing smart brains, smart solutions, working hard for good incentives to solve a problem that, quite frankly, puts potentially billions of dollars back in the pockets of business owners who deserve it when they get their results from their ad campaigns. That to me says I can't sit on my ass waiting for somebody to figure this out for the next 3 years. we've got to take control. And so Bittensor, as far as I can see, is the only place where we can achieve that. It's a pretty unique environment, and hopefully we can mutually all benefit.
Once you see it, it's hard to unsee it. And no matter how many cracked devs and engineers Google has, there will always be more outside of the company than within it.
Yeah,
Bittensor is a way of harnessing that.
Absolutely.
So, speaking of smart minds, we have 2 more smart minds who I've selected specifically for this conversation, primarily because what you're doing hasn't really been done on Bittensor before at all, but also Bittensor has traditionally not had too many subnets and applications that are directly for enterprise marketing and for business development. We have 2 such subnet owners joining us now, one of whom went through DSV's funding and has since become one of the most best loved and best known subnets on the protocol. And the other has built from the ground up a decentralized real estate empire to challenge another centralized incumbent, not exactly a Google, but real estate, especially in the United States, is one of the most centralized and fixed industries. So in those 2 contexts, we can get a broader view of how you can follow in their footsteps and build something for enterprise on Bittensor. So without further ado, I bring you 2 of my favorite people. Mr. Gavin Zaints of SN73, the lead poet. Hey, Gavin.
Hello, 71, but we're close enough.
I've written 73 on a
yeah,
lot of marketing.
I just saw the article and I appreciate it. But
73 is hash, man.
Yeah.
That's just weak.
Close.
Lead poet, 71. Here's Gavin. And 46, the one and only Sebi Rubino.
Hello. Thanks for having me here, guys. And I'm pumped to learn more. I see that the pledge is already filled up. So congrats, one. And I look forward to diving deeper.
Fantastic.
Likewise. Thank you. Appreciate you taking the time to be here, gents. It's much appreciated.
So we have 2 of the best subnets that have disrupted traditional industries and shown how you build B2C and B2 enterprise on Bittensor, the first B being Bittensor. But I want Rob to have a chance to really walk us through what he's created already, because I think it's seriously impressive, and I'd love everyone's opinion on it, because we have a lot of smart minds in the room now. So now is the time to show our audience, our pledges, and each other what Bittensor is made of. So if you want to share your screen, I will stop sharing mine. So we have a deck that will walk through.
All right, are you seeing it?
It's coming very shortly. There we are. Take it away.
All right, so we thought we'd start with being subtle here by describing this as the best AI-powered Google Ads business in the world. And there's an important word on that slide, which is business. We're not saying the best Google Ads SaaS in the world, or agency, or service provider. We're saying the best business. And you'll see why as we go through this, because there's more to this than just building clever things. Commercial reality matters. So let me see if I can change slides without. All right. So here's just kick us off. What we're aiming to do is build the best AI-powered Google Ads business, and we're pretty uniquely positioned to do it. We spoke before as I came onto the show about my background with Google Ads, with building our agency, with selling our agency, with building Google Ads SaaS, with selling that. And now we're bringing together those 2 things and some new stuff and Bittensor. It's kind of like a combination that, with a couple of other things I want to share with you in a few minutes, give us quite a unique position to tackle this. So let's just start by looking at how big is this thing we're playing with? What are we actually engaging with here? Because we're all aware of the world of AI right now. We're all aware of what's going on in terms of, ChatGPT, Claude Code, all those kind of things coming in. And there is a bit of a perception that maybe that's a problem for Google. Let me just address that before we go any further. If you were to listen to some of the people in the universe, they'd be saying, oh, Google search is dying. Well, actually, their ads business last year did $291 billion in 2025. And that's with the rise of all the AI. And it grew 16% in the year. Now, 16% growth in a mature business, I think there's many mature businesses will be delighted just to get any green number on there, let alone 16% double-digit growth. So we're dealing with a market that is, despite everything going on, still growing significantly. And if that's the background in terms of the market that we're addressing, every one of those, let's not forget, real money leaves real business owners' pockets, from the biggest companies in the world to the smallest. And the reality of this is that our profession, Google Ads management, hasn't really changed very much. Why do I know that? Because apart from running my own agency, I've spent a lot of time training other agencies, putting processes into other agencies. They hire me to work with them to get their teams up to speed. And we've trained hundreds and hundreds over the last 10 years, and one-to-one, quite a few in the last 3 years. So I know what it looks like because I speak to these people daily. And the reality of it is, you've got some version of a dude called Jeff. Now, Jeff might be at home in his bedroom, he might be in an office, he could be anywhere. Jeff will have a portfolio of clients to manage. And depending on the size of those clients, that might be 5, it might be 50, or anything in between. And what actually happens is Jeff picks your stuff. If you're the client spending money, it might be once a month, it might be once every 2 weeks, it might be once a week, depending what's going on. But it isn't continual attention, it's periodic. And when Jeff makes changes to an account to make them better, he's working with tiny, infinitesimally small data sets. Let's take an example of a dentist. Dentist spending $2,500 a month, for example. They've probably bought 100 clicks. Now you tell me what data you can work with 100 clicks. There's no statistical value in that. There's no meaning to that. You're working on guesswork and gut feel. Every PPC pro you'll ever come across will tell you they're data driven. Sorry to pop the bubble, it's bullshit. They aren't. It's just not, because it's difficult. They end up eyeballing stuff. So Jeff will be doing this. He'll take the money, and in reality, he'll pick up the phone. He'll do something when you scream. I see so many people going, what am I working on today? Well, who's screaming loudest? Who's a flight risk? Who is a churn risk? And sadly, given it's an industry I've been part of for the last 10 years, I'm embarrassed to say that that's reality. It was the reality 10 years ago. It's still the reality today. Working typically with manual processes, working with spreadsheets. And these guys have to stay certified. It's a thing people expect. And Google partnership, Google certification, guess what? It comes with strings. And the certification doesn't say, get the best result for your client at all times. The certification say, do the things that we want you to do at all times. And guess what? They're not always in the client's best interest and are frequently absolutely against the client's best interest. So I often describe it, it's like asking the IRS to do your taxes. I mean, it's just not the best idea. So we're living in a world with AI now. And can AI beat Jeff? Of course it can. It can do things check every 2 minutes if you want it to. It can look at every metric. The technology is not really there in many ways to do lots of good stuff yet, but it's getting better. Put it simply, Jeff's going to be toast. All the Jeffs around the world doing low-value manual work are absolutely fried. AI, over the next 12 months, will eat them, and eat them alive 3 times a day. So here's the let's talk about the elephant in the room, because it's there and we know it's happening. Every conversation I have on a regular basis, people are saying, but isn't ChatGPT going to kill Google? Isn't Claude going to kill Google? Well, I can give you 291 billion reasons why not. And they're not stupid people. I looked at this number before. They reckon 10% of Google's workforce of 180,000 are PhD level staffers. Now, I'm willing to bet that 18,000 staffers with PhDs and essentially unlimited resources can find out a way to kill a startup or survive and thrive in that environment. Because when you look at that, their ads business alone would make them the 51st biggest GDP economy in the world. There are European countries with smaller economies than Google. And if we look at how they defend that. If they need to spend money, if they need to burn, you look at how other people are borrowing and having to raise investment. They've got more money in their bank account than Canada. Let's for context, that's the size of their war chest if they want to fight and win this battle, and they've got 291 billion reasons to want to win it. So, will things change? Absolutely. Will the models change? The formats change? Will how ads are presented, how ads are delivered change? Completely. We expect that. But will that beast called Google die? Probably not. So, why do we say we think we've got the perfect Google AI ads business? Well, I think you need, number one, you need somebody who understands it, and without wishing to appear immodest, I've kind of been there and done that, and have people around me who've also been there and done that. But lots of people can say that. But you need to be able to make sales. We know this. We don't just live inside Bitstarter. We live in the real world where we have to win customers, we have to win business, grow, raise cash flow. Well, John has done that many times over. I'll come through his CV a little bit in a minute. But he's done that. He's built some seriously big businesses and had some very successful exits. I've built an agency. I've sold it. I've built and sold 2 Google Ads SaaSes. We've been there. We've got the experience. But we're not unique in that. And we know that. We need more. So what makes the difference? Well, difference number one is clearly Bitstarter. This is bringing the flamethrower to the knife fight. And if we can harness some of the smartest people in the world to work out a prediction model and answer one question that's simple to state but very difficult to do is, given a Google Ads account, if I make this one change to it, what will happen to that account in the next 30 days? That's a really difficult question to answer. That's why the Bitstarter community are being called into action to help us answer that question. And without going through all the technical stuff on there that you can read for yourselves, we have everything we need to be able to activate in that world and get smart people working with us.
I'm very, very interested in this because it was one of those problems that I always thought would be intransigent to being programmable and composable. But then having seen what Lead Poet have done, for example, where they've taken something like lead generation, which really feels like it's either going to be an art or a terrible science whereby you just get awful volume. They had a very successful product launch this week, and by all accounts are going from strength to strength. So when I see on screen prediction is verifiable, business goals actually, they can be measurable and verifiable if you're able to structure them in a certain way.
Exactly. So exactly that. So let me move to my next slide, and hopefully it all will become clear. And it's simple, not the next one. So could anybody else do this? Well, they need a couple of things that we've got uniquely that answer what you've just said, Chris, which is, first of all, you need access to a lot of data. Most agency people are seeing maybe 100 accounts in their lifetime, tiny small numbers. We've already got direct API and data access to over 20,000 Google Ads accounts, and they're all their historical data. So we're starting with access to a data set that takes years to build up. People, you can't just go, hey, could you have your Google Ads account access, please? Getting 20,000 account access, unless you're doing some kind of weird hack, is a time-consuming exercise that we've built up over a long period of time. So that's the first level. But somebody, if they put enough time and effort, could build that. But it's going to take them a long while. What we've then done is we've started codifying and decomposing and destructuring that data to build comparability across accounts, which Google accounts are not designed for comparability. We've built them into comparable data sets. We've broken them down into named archetypes with a diagnostic taxonomy. So we know the structure and the shape of accounts and their data points at any given point in time. And we also have a history of changes made and results achieved. So at any time we can say, this is a starting position of an account and all its data points. These are the changes made to it over a period, and this was the outcomes achieved. So we have the before, the during, and the after, and we have it at scale in a structured format. Now, I think the expression is that's been a shit ton of work to get to that point. That doesn't just happen by accident. So for anybody to get to that point and deconstruct it in the way that we have done it's going to take them a long time to get there. So hence, we've taken something that people treat as an eyeball level problem and turned it into a data science problem that we can model and build.
You didn't just describe a moat. You just described the Mariana Trench of moats. Because when someone says, I want to start this sort of business on BitTensor, what about the data set? Is it structured? Is it comparable? That is my favorite slide in the entire thing. It's an absolute home run.
It's funny. I saw somebing on the way here someone going, I've built my Google Ads on OpenClaw, and they'd open sourced their repo, and I read it on the train. It was like, oh, good luck. Oh, good luck. So anyway, so essentially, we're a prediction forecasting subnet. The forecasting just happens to be Google Ads. That's for anybody on this call who's miner or thinking about mining. Think about this as a mathematical prediction forecasting problem that just happens to contain Google Ads data. It is not exclusively a Google Ads problem. That's just the surface of this. So we can, and we hope to attract a really broad church of people with smart backgrounds of very different places who can bring the data skills to our data set, because the actual contents don't matter. It's been codified sufficiently that your models, your processes can work.
This is almost like a hypothesis.
Last couple of bits. Who is this? Who's done this? I've already talked about me a little bit. I didn't think you needed another picture of me. You've got to look at me long enough on this live stream. Sorry about that, folks. On the right-hand side of the screen, John Davey, my co-owner and advisor, and Siam's mentor, serial smart guy, has just been around, built, sold, scaled businesses for fun. And when I say for fun, I mean, it's something that just gives him a massive kick doing it, and was been along with us since the very early days and part of this ride. So John and I have already had 2 exits together. We've built 2 successful businesses together. And we needed more boots on the ground for this as well. So James, when we came to start building some of this stuff out and we're actually going back into tech again, I said that I'd had the opportunity to train and coach teams for Google Ads. So when we needed somebody, my natural point of call was, who's the smartest person of all the people that I've coached over the last 2.5 years? Let's go and hire that person. So we brought James in.
That's how I ended up with Gus. It was, who's the smartest person who works hard and is committed, who's approached me on BitTensor in the last year? It's him. So validated strategy.
Exactly. It works. And it's been a great journey so far. So what I don't want anybody to do is leave this call with the impression that somehow this is a theoretical exercise. This is not a mental white paper. This is a real living business. We have a live product. We have living customers. We have currently around 40,000 a month in revenue and growing quite quickly. For example, we just signed up a 60 location US franchise group, and we have more coming to us already. So this isn't just a theoretical, does it work? We already know it works. The tools we've built work. The business processes we've built work. Plugging in BitTensor and the forecasting capability into this answers the question that we can't answer today. Today we can say, what are the problems? What are my options and my choices? And we pick the best we can and execute. But that's not done with a degree of predictability. And we certainly can't predict impact. As we get BitTensor really humming, then we can predict impact. So we're not a white paper, we're an existing business. And here's how we work in the real world. We work in 3 different ways. So we offer managed services. And the key thing there is we run our own software. We do it like anybody else could do it. The difference is, and the reason people like franchises hire us, is responsibility. They don't want it in-house. They could push the buttons, but they don't want to push the buttons. They want somebody owning the responsibility for the outcome. And so we take that on in the same way an agency would traditionally take it on. The difference is an agency has an army of people delivering service to varying degrees of quality. We push the button, the machine does the heavy lifting. We have software margins on agency prices. which is a very good place to be. We then have our agency gain share model, where we work with agencies. We've got our first one going at the moment, where we look at their agency, say, hey, you got 5 people on your PPC team. You probably don't need 3 or 4 of those. Maybe keep 2 so you've got some redundancy. But we will take that cost out of your business and give you more capacity and higher quality deliverables for your clients, but we'll share the proceeds with you. So we share the upside. We don't just go, here's a software, buy a license. We will share it, and we work with them to implement. And then, of course, some people want pure software. That's their model, and that's fine. We can do that as well. So we have routes to market for different levels of the market and what they need, and we can execute them really well. And will be shortly. We're working out the details of this at the moment. This isn't straightforward, so I'm not going to say it'll be launched on the 17th of the month. I don't know. We're working through the details. It's a bit tricky. But we're also going to be introducing introducer fees. So for those of you in the community who have relationships, who have people running Google Ads, be it agencies for clients or end users themselves, bring them to us. We will happily reward you with our alpha. And we will be supporting our alpha going forward. I think it's really important to make that statement up front and to be clear to the community and setting some expectations. We will be using revenue to support alpha. Our view is very simple. If BitTensor is our moat, we want to embed the deepest moat that we possibly can. We want to support the community, pay the miners, and get the community involved as much as we possibly can and deliver really good returns. So we will be supporting it. Exact numbers, we don't know. We're working through that because we want to grow cash to grow the business and to keep the business humming along as fast as we can, but also not compromise our ability to support the alpha as well. It's a juggling act. We don't know quite how the line's going to work out just yet, but all I can do is sit here and make the commitment, but that's the direction of travel that we're going on. Chris, that's all I have to share today. I hope that was vaguely useful.
Thank you, Rob. BitTensor, are you watching BitTensor? I think we just saw something very, very special, which was a near perfect pitch. It is so exciting when you find a brilliant new founder and you see that they get the protocol and then they hit it out the park. So I was going to check in on how the crowdfund was doing, but I suspect, yeah, let's have a look. How did Bitstarter react to? Oh, yeah. Kill the headlights, put it in neutral. We have got
2 minutes.
400 tau in. I don't even want to know how fast that was because
2 minutes.
I imagine it was somewhere between your second and third slides. Speaking of which, I want to open it up to the floor now because I want to get Gus, who's got a background in advertising, and Siam, Sebi, and Gavin in. So if you don't mind, in fact, no, I'll share the slide that I think.
Oh, sorry, did you want to back on?
Oh, I can put it over here myself.
Oh, there you go.
And I just want to give a nice springboard to some of the conversation. I want to open the floor to questions now because you've said a lot of interesting things, and we have lots of BitTensor's best minds here to drill deeper. So, opening the floor, we've got the how the subnet works on a really high level here. I'd be curious to see how people think this fits into the protocol and how subnets traditionally operate.
Totally. Well, I have a couple questions, but wanted to say, yeah, an amazing presentation. Clearly have a wealth of experience, and really glad to have you on the network, and also someone else, in the marketing sales world, because I can count them on one hand that we have, and it's great to have more of those type of businesses get involved on BitTensor. So yeah, so just kind of based on this exact slide, I was curious, I guess, will the miners be producing, let's say, a model, giving you the model, then you run that to see the results, or do they have access to the data? How do you, I guess, envision just kind of that, the system functioning, on the back end?
So we're working with Tensora on that. So they're our advisors in terms of the model, and they've been extremely useful so far. But what we're basically doing is we were providing data sets, and we obviously provide sample data sets of the before data and the status. They will run the model. Tensora acting as validators will then validate that output, and we can obviously publish leaderboards from there. So that's currently the way it's going to be going. The exact micro bits as to exact how the details were, I'm not 100% sure, but that's where it's going basically.
No, that's sweet.
We wanted those guys
kind of
involved.
that.
We want to make sure we've got a really good measurement, but it will all be real, live, cohorted data that we can refresh on a routine basis. So one of the things I want to make sure is that people always have new data sets to work with over periods of time, because Google Ads is not it's not like a physics problem. Solve physics, it stays solved. Google Ads doesn't. Unfortunately, those 18,000 people doing clever stuff will mean that our process and our solution is valid with a shelf life. And so we have to keep constantly evolving and driving that solution.
Yeah, I think that what interested me when I was doing the assessment of your technical documentation, it's like mine is being challenged to map out PPC interventions.
Yeah.
So given the current state of an advertising account and a bundle of actions,
correct,
predict outcomes over the next 7, 14, 28 days,
yep,
including metric deltas and how they cascade effects through the account hierarchy, and therefore will the business goals be hit? So it's a very interesting problem, because as you say, you've got to keep refreshing the data, otherwise you're overfitting to a limited repository. So Gavin, I don't know the extent to which that answers your question, but yeah, I certainly think it's a very interesting, very promising design.
Yeah, no, definitely fully answered the question, and yeah, definitely really excited to see it in action, and after you deploy, definitely we'll be monitoring it, and also obviously glad to. It sounds like you already have this business going. Glad to help, with you, connecting you with customers, as that is kind of our specialty. And we'd also love to use you as well as we now start to focus on our outbound journey. There's definitely an interesting synergy that we could have.
Can I actually comment to that as well?
Yeah, of course.
So Gavin, thank you, and I appreciate it. And definitely a synergy here that I think I was really pleased when Chris said you were coming on the call, because it's like, okay, we need to have a conversation anyway. But I think one of the things that is interesting in the Google Ads sphere that makes the problem more challenging, more interesting, but also is if you take any situation, there is even if you've got one problem you want to solve in an account, there are multiple ways you can solve it. But some of them are complementary, some of them are contradictory. So not only are you choosing a choice, you're effectively choosing which is the compatible basket of solutions with the highest level of impact that I can implement. The way I tend to think of it is very much like, it's like a blood test result, isn't it? A blood test result in isolation is just a number. It has no knowledge of history. It has no knowledge of how to solve a blood test, how to solve your health, or if you even have a health problem to solve. Our view is very similar. We take data points, we enrich them with a ton of context about the account, and then we evaluate a basket of options that outcome from that. And that's how this works in our universe. But it's a really fun space to be in.
Yeah. I wanted to ask Gavin, because Gavin released a product this week, and to my mind, it's one of the most successful and one of the most effective product launches I've seen on BitTensor, in that Gavin managed to do what very few subnets have ever done, which is to pitch the subnet's proposition in a way that's direct, clear, and you instantly get it, no matter whether you're in the protocol or beyond it. And it doesn't dumb it down. It makes it very, very effective. So Gavin, what advice would you give to someone who's going to build a subnet with a view to a kind of B2B product in a B2C style marketplace?
Yeah, totally. Great question. I mean, it seems like Rob already has a wealth of connections, ideas, and you already have customers. So don't want to think that you don't know any of these things. You probably do, but
bring them on, please.
Yeah, what we saw a lot of success with was a lead magnet strategy. Just gets a lot of interaction, gets a lot of people interested, providing a little bit of value in exchange for people kind of propagating that messaging. that was really successful for us. Could definitely see that also being quite valuable for you as you maybe roll out a new feature, as you have some statistics as you get over time of like, yeah, if you use us, we're X% better because we're using Bitstarter, because we're channeling this global contributor network. So I think that could be really compelling and interesting for you guys to explore, and obviously would be glad to help you cook that up when it comes time.
Yeah, can I just comment on that, because you always just jump in for a second. So Gavin, one of the things we've already in fact the data's running it while we're sitting in this room right now, where in our system Google has something called placements, and a placement is simply somewhere that you show an ad that is not Google search. It could be YouTube, it could be CNN.com, it could be anywhere, and they've increasingly added these placements into their ecosystem. So part of our model, we've collected so far about 35 million unique placements and their stats, which is a data set I don't know anybody else that's got anything like that. Now, what that allows us to do, to your lead magnet comment, is a lot of those things are garbage. Really, really poor quality domains that will just eat your budget and spam the hell out of you. Awful stuff. Obviously, not in Google's interest to get rid of that stuff, because bots spend other people's money really well. I don't know if you know that, but bots are really good at spending money just for fun of it. So we're already modeling lead magnets, saying, hey, if you've got let's say domain extension .click, that infamous, really reliable domain extension. If your ads are getting clicked on .click domains, here's what's likely to happen. So we've modeled that, and we can give sample data as lead magnets and go, okay, here's 10,000 of them that you want to block. If you want the other 35 million, you need to come and talk to us. So we've modeled all those kind of things that we can have interactive lead magnets and deliver a ton of value. So Gavin, I think you're absolutely spot on the money. We're working on it programmatically at the moment, and we'll see when the data comes out.
Yeah. I definitely want to go on to the size of the market and the opportunity here, but I want to bring in my main man, Sebi Rubino. Sebi, talk to me.
Yeah, wow, I'm very impressed, Rob. Congrats on the prior success, and I think that you have something that will essentially be a next step, new heights for what you're doing, especially with this type of build. I'm somebody who's run an advertising agency in the past, right? I've put food on my table. I've paid for rent by running an ad agency, and you're 100% correct that you basically pay for somebody to be responsible for a thing, and you pay for somebody to show up like once a week or once a month and just makes minor changes. Now, I'm all about the reason why I'm in BitTensor. It's like positioning, right? And we're positioning as founders for this future world that is not here yet, but is needed today. And I think ads are going to be extremely disrupted, right? This is a long preface that will lead to a question, but that future is going into chat interfaces, and like you said, you saw somebody using OpenClaw to run their advertising. So my question to you goes something along the lines of: are you selling this to agencies, right? You said you were doing essentially that type of sale for a past company, or are you selling this directly to companies so that essentially they can have their OpenClaw, but actually correct, right, and not a good luck?
Yeah. So the answer is yes. Both.
Well, okay. Okay, both.
It depends on the who, doesn't it? I mean, I think at this stage, should Joe the plumber, who once a month turns his Google ads on and has a look at it, use our tool? Probably not. For no other reason than we probably don't want to have to answer support questions at this point. Should an agency who's got an opportunity to massively reduce their headcount and their overhead cost use it? Absolutely. But equally, we've focused a lot of effort on franchises. So why do we focus on franchises? Really simple. We make one win, we get 60 accounts or 100 accounts or whatever at once. So by making one win, we make massive sales and we scale very quickly with it. But they're ideal because they don't want the responsibility. And I think we're looking for those clients who don't want the responsibility of running it themselves at this time. If you've got a big in-house marketing team, we absolutely can run it for those, and we can take care of them as well. But in terms of focusing where our outbound effort goes, Our outbound effort goes into franchises and agencies. I'm fortunate enough, I've white labeled thousands of agencies in the past. I have relationships with many, many agencies all over the world. So for us to make them a proposition from a position of trust and, I get hopefully reputational goodwill that I've built up over a long period, we can open doors into those agencies because I'm essentially selling you free money. Going, hey, take our tool, your clients will get better outcomes, and we'll share the upside with you.
I think that's a brilliant question, Sebi, and I've seen so many subnets produce a really incredible competition that leads to a product, that leads to a market that doesn't want to buy that commodity in that way because something in the final mile wasn't quite right. It just wasn't the way in which they were accustomed to procuring that service, or it wasn't packaged in the right way. It wasn't served in the right way. So thinking backwards from the end user, even if it's two different types of end users, is really smart. And at the beginning, when I introduced Sebi, I said, Resi is, taking on the real estate market is really centralized. I can't think of anything more centralized than Google Ads. Google and Facebook accounting for like 90% of, or if not more, of all digital ad spend.
Yep.
I think we've lost sight of how weird that is, or how monopolized that is. Gus has been working, or used to work, as head of programmatic advertising, and knows this industry and its size and its character more than most. Gus, what's this market like?
Well, when I was first pitched the idea, my immediate thought was, can I get a referral fee? Because then I'll be a millionaire. So obviously, having worked 6 years in the iGaming/crypto industry, both agency side and operator side, I've struggled, with both sides. I've had incredible professionals, and I've had Jeffs, right? I think that Rob kind of underplays how bad Google Ads support is, because in the end, all that they want to do is make money. So you have a problem with an ad, the solution is, well, spend more. The conversion rate isn't as good, well, then the bid needs to be higher. It's never a problem with the platform itself, it's always a problem with you, and you need to spend more. So my initial reaction was, we can obliterate the entire market, right? Because if we have data sets of, I don't know how many industries you've been in how many agencies, that will probably accrue to millions of data points. These millions of data points are actual signals that we can use to leverage information. Now, I've managed over 2 million euros a month in ad spend. And while I was working agency side, that is usually somewhere between 3 to 10% of what the agency makes. So, for every million, we could be making 30 to 100K. And I can guarantee you that AdTal will run ads significantly better than I have ever done, and than what I've seen others do. So I really think, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but not only can we run the ads itself, but we can also sell data sets to operators that have in-house data warehouses, so that they can keep all the data, and then if they want to run different attribution models, if they want to run different types of ads, we can do all of this, right? So we can attack multiple industries.
Of course, can I? So, just a couple of thoughts that I think are you made me smile actually a couple of ways. So, number one, can we sell data sets? We could do better than that. We could probably sell API data access. Our system is entirely built that way already, so that's no hardship for us to allow in-house teams access to some of those things. One of our rules is really clear. We will never ever give LLMs direct access to our data set. They only ever see the edge that they need to process if we use an LLM for anything. So our data is very much air gapped from just about the outside world, other than the tiny little bits that we need to expose. And you go, okay, of my, let's call it 15 billion data points, you can have these 10. Process those 10 that you need, but I'm not showing you the rest. So we're not paying to train. I'll be paying to train ChatGPT here. But a couple of things you said there. So API access and data sets for big spenders, absolutely. That's a bit of a no-brainer, because we can codify their data better than they can, and in ways they can't do it. The second point that you raised, legitimately about Google, and I'll say something that's it's the weirdest thing ever. It's the only time I've ever worked in an industry where the biggest supplier in the industry actively works against the best interest of its customers. I feel if you tried that in anywhere else, you'd have a very short business life, but yet in this industry, we kind of accept it. I mean, this is how stupid it is. You buy a click on Google. What you say is, I'm prepared to pay $5 for a click. Google will say, okay, thank you for that. We will take your $5. We may spend 10 because we have rules that says we can spend 10. We may show your ad for something you asked for, but more likely we'll show it for something that you didn't ask for, but is vaguely related to it. And we'll probably hide the data so it won't tell you what exactly you bought, and we won't tell you exactly how much it costs until after the fact. Good luck. You try that in a shop. Try walking into a shop and see if you could do that. It's an insane place to be. I described it. I was on stage at an event roughly this time last year, actually, a PPC sort of big shindig. And I described my second slide in a room that included Google staff was Google's adversarial architecture. I described it as. And I kind of pyramided up the layers of redaction, obfuscation, and just general difficulty in their ecosystem, all designed to make people like ours jobs difficult. Now, thankfully, it doesn't matter how difficult they make it for humans. If we put our tools in place, we kind of go around that. So
the only industry I think that's comparably mistreats its customers is real estate, especially here in the UK. I think it's slightly better in the US because in the US, you get someone on your side. In the UK, you are just shafted. So again, I want to bring in Sebi because I think there are some similarities when you're attacking kind of centralized business. But what I'm curious about is how do you go about accessing a market that's dominated by a single player? Zillow in the US account for a huge amount of real estate listings and viewings. And Google obviously dominate ad spend. So I want to bring Sebi's opinion in here about how you go about framing it, the risks of overfitting, and then the way in which you can use Bitstarter advantageously when you're attacking a market like that.
Yeah. Well, I think the simplest way to think about, attacking what centralized players are doing is on an idealistic and principles-based organization, right? So, for example, in real estate, we have Zillow, we have all these mortgage companies, but then in crypto we have Figure, right? So you can start to see a spectrum, right? Not everything with Figure is open, right? But they're using blockchain and aggregating capital in a decentralized way, doing a new thing in a new way to do an old thing. Or sorry, doing an old thing in a new way, rather. Geez. And I think that's happening here with AdTow, right? There's this old way of doing it, the Jeff route, but then you can go agentic, and it also plays into that future I was talking about before, which is agents can run ads, and that agent could be responsible, right? So maybe agencies go down, but the same amount of ad bots go up. But back to the point of how do you change the way that the an industry operates? It's create a network that provides the same outcome. Hey, you want to make money? Cool. Well, you're going to run ads. These are the ads to run. These are who to target. And I'm assuming this is how it works on a customer level. I have this outcome. This is our offer. Here's our account. I don't even have to tell you what worked and what didn't. You'll know.
We need two things.
Yeah.
What's your budget? What's your goal?
Right. So with those things, you then have some basically automation to play into, right? The whole Google stack or the Google service stack is completely destroyed, right? You have everybody who's incentivized to make you spend more money, right? Even to the agencies that don't know it. So I'm excited to see this happen. I think that you're on a perfect track to really disrupt what Gavin's doing against the Apollos and even sales navigators in the space. It's make something for the future world, but also gives the outcome in the meantime. So kudos.
And that's a really interesting perspective. It is about stepping into the future we can envisage a world where people can access our data through other bots and things. So it isn't always going to be human to human. I have a really simple view of how I measure success in terms of one of the things I really care about is that our product reaches a level where if you are an individual responsible as a human or a bot for that matter, managing Google Ads for clients, you are being irresponsible and reckless and not working your client's best interests if you don't use it. That's the level of ubiquity I want to get to in the market.
I think it's inevitable, right? Even people with we're starting to see this stuff with real estate, which is like your biggest investment of your life. And people are like trusting AI more and more and more. Every week there's a new article. With advertising, it is quite a binary, right? Did I make money? Did I lose money? And then also there's like how much, of that ROAS. But at the end of the day, especially with these like Ralph loops everybody's talking about, especially you can create this loop where you're like, okay, connect to ad tech, connect to say Google Stitch, or maybe this is a bad example for like graphic placements, but for text, it's the simplest starting point. So then it leads me to the question, Rob, of you talk about the data that you have on Google, and that's fantastic. Facebook and even TikTok have their own, what is essentially like an ad library, right? So that data is available. Maybe not the, micro data points, like how much ROAS did this, produce, but you can assume some things from how long those ads stay alive. My question then becomes is, what you're doing is optimizing text type of advertising outputs, right? For PPC. Okay, go into that.
So we're currently optimizing a Google Ads account. That may include YouTube ads. That may include image display ads. That may include text ads. And likely all of the above. I would say our current state of our tech leans more towards the text-based stuff, but we're just kind of expanding that. And the things like the shopping feeds, we expand our internal structures. Our data set historically tended towards service-based businesses. So we've got more of that data, and that's why we're leaning in that direction. But we'll just keep expanding that. So we get more retail customers on, we get more of the, other markets like the gambling markets that Gus was talking about earlier, and the casinos. So we can bring, we just keep expanding. As far as we're concerned, as the data is codified, we just expand the coverage and the tool set we have internally within that. But you're right. I mean, the actual, so you mentioned Facebook's ad library. So, side story, but directly related to that. I wanted to spy on other Google Ads advertisers so I could work out what times of day they were turning their ads off, which postcodes they were missing, which devices they were missing, which keyword, but tried all the tools in the market and they were crap. So I built one. And we sold that tool in 2024. That was exactly what I built for that reason. Ad library came out halfway through that process. The Google Ads library, they've got the same as Facebook, but it doesn't have the depth of coverage that we were able to get. They couldn't say this person stops at 6 o'clock. So that, and we were doing lots of language processing and AI type stuff with that as well. So it's kind of like a path that we've been down that we're now just able to get far more granular. But Sebi, to your point, there's no reason why in the future the model we've built here, the natural place to take it next, and most likely to have an integration with someone like ChatGPT is Microsoft. We have Microsoft ads and Google ads are near identical, except Microsoft ads are a bit clunkier, a bit dumber, and a lot smaller. But it's exactly the same principles. So data models we've built here will almost certainly translate into that ecosystem with a very high degree. Which will be interesting. Facebook's got its own, and TikTok got their own different characteristics. But once the models are there and they exist, it's an application of data. You need data and an application update.
Damn.
Wow.
I mean, have we found a top 20 subnet, or have we found a top 10 subnet? That's the only question.
Seriously?
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
There must be some good people then.
We only have the studio for another 20 minutes. I know, Gavin, you've got a hard stop at 1:30. So I just want to give a chance for you guys. Are there any final questions? And if not, do you have any advice from what you guys have learned building Subnet 46 and Subnet 71 for someone like Rob, who's fresh-faced and rosy-cheeked and is about to step into a world of pain running a subnet. So, yeah, any pieces of advice for from what you've learned, or any final questions before we wrap up?
Yeah, totally. I just wanted to touch on one thing that you presented. It's not as much of a question, then I'll kind of give you just some experience from the subnet owner perspective. In terms of like your idea of the data moat and that being so valuable, I think, you know, as we see more AI and products become commoditized, I think that is like like one of the final edges. It's the data moat that you have and your distribution, and obviously the nature of your business. You're able to self-distribute, you know, similar to our business. So then the real key is, are you collecting that data? Are you storing that data? Do you have that moat where, yeah, ChatGPT doesn't have that data, Claude doesn't have that data? That is like so valuable. And I just wanted to, you know, quickly touch on that, because like that's totally our thesis as well, is capturing all that data is what creates this value loop of being able to provide higher quality results. You get more volume, and then you just keep getting better results, more volume, better results, more volume, and then you're the king of the hill.
Yeah, I've long believed that the future of tech companies in the world of AI is you need unique proprietary data that nobody else has, and an ability to process it in a uniquely valuable way. If you have those two things and you can combine it with distribution, you're in a really good spot. If you've got regulation, even better, but we haven't got that.
Yeah, no, exactly, and yeah, I think it'll be a great flywheel, for you, and excited to see that happen. It already sounds like it, you know, has happening. I assume Bitstarter, you know, will compound that for you, and then yeah, just in terms of like, you know, the subnet owner experience, obviously everything works smooth. Then you put it in live, and then the miners will break it. You know, luckily you have Tensor on your side, which will, you know, forecast a lot of that and, you know, help you mitigate that before launch, and then also as stuff comes up, you know, I definitely think they'll be great to have, you know, in your corner on that. I'll also offer, you know, my advice, or, you know, your engineer guy, he can also reach out to me, Pranav, the CTO. You know, glad to really elevate anyone that's choosing to come to BitTensor, because you know, it's not going to be as easy as just like building your own business. And I know you know that, but like that's why I want to help anyone that's trying to join to reduce that friction. You know, similar to what Chris is doing with Bitstarter, just reducing this friction to people joining the network. I think this is like the core North Star of what will make the network valuable and make the network, you know, have a moat in itself. And I just want to say, you know, I'm sure, you know, I'll get your information from Siam or Chris, and you can ping me whenever. Connect us with the engineer. Definitely glad to help you on your journey on the network.
I'm well aware. I know an awful lot about one thing. I know a very little relative to you guys about how this ecosystem works. I want to thrive and survive in it, but I'm sure there's battle scars that I need to pick up along the way of that. It's never a straight line, is it? So if you're willing to provide any help at all, Gavin, and anybody else in the court, I will chew your arm off, and you may regret making the offer, but thank you.
No, absolutely.
Sebi, thanks for the kind words, Gavin. Sebi went through more than most to build up 46. Went through a hell of a lot with like hostile wallets holding a lot of the alpha, and then basically having to fight a civil war to win over his own subnet, and then turning it into one of the best best respected, but also one of the best represented subnets around through regular communications. Yesterday, Sebi was doing an AMA on the Nerds channel while I was mucking around, recording my screen, laughing my head off at Jensen Huang videos. Sebi was in the Nerds trying to explain repeatedly how the subnet works, the changes he's making, and so on, just as Gavin was recording one of the best product videos earlier this week. So as well as having two people who've, you know, built subnets very successfully very recently, we've also got two people who are really, really good at communicating how subnets work. And I think we've just found a third in you. So I think like connectivity between you guys could be really, really profitable.
Fantastic. I look forward to it.
Yeah, to give you a little bit of a closing statement, and to that point, Chris, you know, Gavin, great job on that product launch. I think we can all take a page out of his book for that exactly. So I would suggest, you know, on the communications of communications, look at that for sure. But also note that BitTensor is a lot different than what you've done in the past, which I have some insight to, which is I'm assuming your Google agents or Google ad agencies or any agency softwares that you've built in the past did not have a token associated to them.
Correct.
Right. So that's kind of odd. The best part and the most time consuming part is actually taking the time to connect with your token holder. Right. At the end of the day, these are your investors.
Mhm.
And I think that if you're doing, you got to get in the nerds chat, right? If you're a subnet owner, you got to get with the nerds, get into the chats, go into nerds, DTAO, subnet summer. I saw Alchemist in here, so set up an AMA in there. But you have to always be, and it's not like let me always be shilling or hyping. No, share what you're building. Right? There's a lot of exciting stuff, like even the micro changes you make as a subnet founder. Like we just had Ridges talk about some like micro detail and like how the validator process works, right? And that excites people. That we're building a decentralized network, and that inherently means that everybody has a role to play. Some of that is building it and funding it, you, and everyone else who's buying the tokens. But then it's also communicating that. So I would definitely lean on your community. Have one-on-one chats. I like to have a one-on-one chat with a token holder every day. So whether it's a big holder or a small holder, there is value there. And then furthermore, when you have those conversations and you build those, I mean, you just got a ton of new holders, so I'm sure you get in touch very easily.
Apparently.
But yeah, as you do that, you will see that more content will be posted about you. When somebody says something, and inevitably it will happen, bad about your subnet in a chat, somebody will be there to back you up. And it's goes back to the point of we're not here building businesses. Right? You know how to build businesses. That's phenomenal. And I think that the next leg up is now you're building a network, right? And that is the whole essence of BitTensor is a network of sub-networks, right? We are simply networks. You can make sub-networks as well, and that's always suggested. But yeah, that is my point. You are a network now, and you have investors now with the token. That is liquid. That is a very important part, right? Because you can have liquid investors. And, like Gavin said, I'm a resource to you. My team is a resource to you. I'd love to get on a call and see how we can support you. We have some things working in the background and how we help subnet teams, and I'd love to share that with you on a private call.
I very much appreciate all of that. Thank you. And I'm well aware, people on this call are coming and putting their hands in their pockets and making investment decisions. I understand that. And I understand the responsibility that comes with that. Now, if you're a relative introvert like me, that's a difficult thing to do. But I understand the value of it. I understand the need for it. And we'll find a way to make really good communications and keep that communication flowing and keep it open. Because apart from anything else, we move at pace. We move at good pace. We get things done quickly. And I want to be able to share those things with the world and take the knocks, take the hits when we get something wrong, because we will. But let's do it with the best of intentions and try and set things off the right way.
I love hearing both of you say that and your receptiveness to it, Rob, because I said it once and I'll say it again. Networks will outcompete businesses. They just will. Network effects that you experience in something like a Facebook are nothing like the kind of network effects you can get from a network of networks that is constantly incentivizing the best incentives and the best structures for growing that network sustainably. So it takes a village. It's really, really hard to run a subnet compared to a startup. And the only way you can really do it, as Sebi says, is find your people, find your advocates. And for the people watching out there on Bitstarter, whether you got to pledge or not, you're doing it. You're part of it. You're part of a better way to launch subnets on BitTensor. And that's the new lifeblood. That's the new energy. The better we get at launching teams, the better their trajectory goes in the early days, we can have a serious impact on the network as a whole. If we keep finding founders like Rob, so much the better. So thanks for joining. Guys, feel free with any concluding remarks. I want to give particular thanks to Rob here, who has handled it like an absolute pro, which he is. And at the short notice with which we managed to rename the subnet, which I can reveal is, oh, in fact, no, let's let Siam reveal this. Siam, what subnet number is Rob in? Siam, can you hear me, Siam?
He's writing on Telegram, so I assume that his Starlink isn't doing very well.
Fantastic. Well, let's give the honor to Rob then.
21.
21.
Subnet 21.
Beautiful.
And I will just say as well, we're Subnet 21. Please be patient with us. Please, this is a new universe. It's a new experience for us. We're stepping into something we've never done before. And come with good intents, but please bear with us and be patient. We want to learn.
Sorry, Rob, it was too good a pitch. No one's going to be patient with you. Everyone's going to be when moon. If you wanted them to be patient, you should have dropped the ball a hell of a lot more. So,
the work stuff we can do. It's a community bit we need to learn.
well, you just made your first big step because we have pledges, we have a big audience, we have Sebi and Gavin, Gus and Siam. Thank you all. Thank you, Bitstarter. Thank you, Bitenza. This is Bitstarter launch number 5. I'm Matt Razak, and